They thought no one would notice when they stole my firewood. 6 months of winter heat gone overnight just like that. They even called it community redistribution. Imagine that. My work, my sweat, my woodpile vanished, and someone in a pearl earring said it was for the greater good. That's a hell of a way to wake up, let me tell you. But maybe you've been there too, standing at your window, coffee half cold in your hand, and all you can do is stare as your world gets hauled away by people who think the rules only apply to everyone else. That morning, the only thing colder than the air was the look Karen, the HOA president, shot me across my own driveway. She stood there in her crimson coat, clutching her clipboard like it was a sword, watching the trucks idle as her crew strapped down what I'd spent all year splitting and stacking. No warning, no knock, just the screech of tires in the snow and the scrape of metal forks against the frozen ground. Maybe if you've lived under an HOA, you can hear that sound too. The sound of somebody else taking charge of what's supposed to be yours. You ever feel that sting, the one that sits right in your chest when someone tells you, actually, this isn't yours, it's ours. Check the new map. Well, I felt it deep enough to chase out the cold. See, I used to work in legal. Not a lawyer, but the one in the back room building the case so the suits could win the arguments. This time, though, it was my fence line, my land, my voice. And it started with a pile of firewood turned out to be the first thread in unraveling a whole web of lies. I moved to northern Montana 12 years ago. Burnt out from city life, done with Denver, with everything that chewed me up and spit me out. I built my own cabin, made it tight solid, a place that could stand up to winter storms and loneliness both. Every stick of that firewood was mine. Chopped it, seasoned it, stacked it myself. The fence had been there since 2011, mapped, recorded legal as any line could be. But suddenly, because the ground was white and the calendar said emergency, Karen and her board claimed it all belonged to the community. Section 4.8C, she said. I could have laughed if it hadn't made me so damn angry. It's funny the things people will do when they think you'll just stay quiet. That's the game, really. Hope nobody fights back. Hope nobody's got the paperwork. But I had it all, the deed, the survey photos of the fence, even an old trail cam catching that pile of wood, sitting untouched on my side of the line. I stayed up late that first night, flashlight in one hand, pen in the other, making notes. Not because I thought I'd win, just because I knew I had to start. You want to know what kept me up wasn't the cold. It was knowing I'd seen this before. People losing ground, 1 inch at a time, because someone decided to redraw a line on a map and call it progress. The next day, I walked out to the mailbox. There, stuck to the community board, was a flyer. Emergency action. Firewood reclaimed for redistribution. Residents may apply for relief. Like I was supposed to be grateful. Like losing what you worked for is just another way to show neighborly love. That same afternoon, they tacked a citation to my door, $480 fine for unauthorized storage on HOA land. I stared at it stunned. They'd fined me for storing firewood they'd already stolen. If that isn't a punchline, I don't know what is. I set up a new trail cam, backed up old images, started a folder, Ramsey versus Langford /HOA board. I hiked through snow, grabbed certified maps, found the letter from years ago when the original developer corrected the boundary lines. All of it pointed the same direction. My land, my wood, my rights. The only thing the HOA had was a new plat updated without a vote. 16 feet of stolen boundary, not just from me, but from anyone too quiet or too tired to notice. But I noticed, and that was just the start. By the third day, as the generator sputtered and the cabin temperature dropped to 39 degrees, I realized what this was: a squeeze play. Karen and the board were broke storm damage. The winter before had drained the accounts, and they'd invented a relief fund funded entirely by fines and seized property. Funny how those who preach community are always the first to pocket the proceeds. I got help from the most unlikely places. June, my neighbor, almost 70 hands, tough as old leather, called one night. They'd tagged her propane tank as a violation, even though her late husband had installed it years before the HOA ever formed. She sounded scared, but not beaten. They think no one's watching, she whispered. Then it's time someone watched back, I said. That's how it began, really. Not just me, but a few of us, the edge people, the ones whose lots bordered the wild. I set up cameras, marked fence posts, pulled out every document I had. The HOA kept coming, more citations, more threats, even a note nailed to my door. You're endangering the neighborhood with your obstruction. No signature, of course. Then they got sloppy. Footage showed Karen in her red coat yanking up a pink survey stake in the middle of the night. Guess she didn't realize the camera was rolling. Not her best move. When the generator finally died, I found the wires cut clean as a whistle. That's not weather, that's sabotage. It didn't matter if I could prove it. What mattered was the story was shifting. Someone was scared. Someone was. I called the Sheriff Morales, big guy, kind eyes. Showed him the footage, the falsified maps, the stacks of fake fines. He shook his head, said, "You work in law or something used to." I said, "You got more paperwork than half our cases." He'd file it, but warned me, "You start making too much noise. They'll try to paint you as unstable." I laughed. They'll have a harder time painting me when I publish. And that's what I did. I took every photo, every invoice, every overlapping map, and sent copies everywhere. To the Attorney General, to a land use lawyer I knew from Denver, to Marcia, a local reporter who'd covered the wildfires last year. Suddenly, people were listening. Suddenly, it wasn't just my problem. You know when the tide turned? New Year's Eve. HOA meeting, standing room only. Karen started with her practice speech budget, this community that, but I cut in right as she tried to move to new business. I pulled out my binder, laid out the evidence map, overlays video, stills of midnight tampering, records of unapproved vendor payments to her cousin's landscaping company, invoices labeled asset removal. The room went dead quiet. For a second, I thought the world had stopped spinning. Then the questions started. One neighbor after another talking about phantom fines, mysterious boundary changes, threats left on doors. Karen tried to regain control, but the story had changed. When I showed the footage her in the act, there was no going back. The clapping started slow, then spread. The room cracked open. Within a week, half the board had resigned. Karen, too, vanished, no apology. Just a letter through a notary, all about community service. The county launched a formal investigation. The state put a freeze on all HOA accounts. Turns out over $100,000 in community funds had gone missing, funneled through fake vendors, padded by seized relief assets. They called it mismanagement. I called it what it was: theft. Funny thing, Justice. It's not clean. It's not quick. It's slow, like thawing ground in March, and sometimes it hurts. But when it comes, it's like a fire that refuses to go out. The woodpile they'd stolen, what was left of it anyway, got dumped back on the lot months later. Half rotted, no note, no apology. Didn't matter. By then, neighbors I barely knew had already shown up with axes splitting and stacking enough wood to get me through the rest of the winter. We rewrote the rules after that annual audits: 75% approval for any map, change a bill of rights for landowners. They called it the Ramsey Rule, though I never asked for it. I just wanted to be left alone. But people needed it, and I understood why. There's a lesson in all of this, one I learned the hard way, and maybe you have too. Power doesn't corrupt people so much as it attracts the ones who want to use it like a hammer. But even the biggest hammer can't smash through truth if you document everything, if you stand up, if you don't back down when the cold gets deep. It's never about the firewood. It's about belonging, about the right to draw a line and say, "This is mine. This is enough." Now, Every so often, I drive into town and hand a folder to anyone new moving in. Inside, copies of rights, a checklist for records, and one line written in red: never erase a fence unless you built it. Because that's how it starts. Quiet, casual, invisible, until you wake up one morning and everything you worked for is gone bundled up in someone else's definition of community. So, I've got to ask you, since you've stuck with me this long, where do you draw your lines? When does for the greater good cross over into just plain theft? And if you saw your neighbor's rights getting hauled off in a truck at dawn, would you stand at your window or would you step outside? I know what I'd do. I did it. And I'll do it again if I have to. Let me know, have you ever had to fight back against a bully with a clipboard? Ever watch someone redraw your boundaries and call it progress? Tell me your story or just tell me where you stand. Because here's the thing: bullies in a snowstorm think silence is the same as surrender. But justice, real justice, isn't quiet. It cracks, it burns, and sometimes, just sometimes, it warms up a whole town.